Hello, this is Rats with Team 4545 League, analyze the game between MN Runner and Fireball. This was played in Team Event 53 in round 1 of the playoffs. Let's have a look. Okay, it's a French, and it's the McCutcheon variation. Very tricky line. I have an interesting variation I play against this. It just simply goes like this, and then I take, and black is out of everything that he usually gets and expects. Now, he's going to get equality, but he's not playing his normal type of game. So this is how I handle the McCutcheon, or did handle it. I don't allow the French defense anymore because I don't play e4. But anyway, theory still gives the game equality, but once again, like I say, black is not getting into his normal type game that he's used to, and that's the whole idea. Get somebody out of their familiar territory. Why keep playing something they may know like the back of their hand? How do you beat that? Well, if you're a better player, you probably do, but if you're an equal player, it gets tricky. Okay, so anyway, I don't know all the lines of the McCutcheon. I know that this looks like something I've seen, looked at 40 years ago. It's very interesting what happens here in the next few moves. Here's black's getting his thematic c5 push in, and what's going to happen is the white pawns are actually going to dominate the queen side in just a few moves. It kind of surprised me, and let's see how that happens. Okay, a3. Now, I don't know if taking the knight is the right move. It seems to follow the spirit of a French defense. The only difference is black doesn't get, or white doesn't get double pawns. Let's see. This would be the formation, and black can continue his development. The one thing I always preach, knight c6, and I guess if this is theory, it's probably got some analysis on it somewhere. I don't know, but my guess is it's probably close to even. But bishop a5 just kind of it preserves the bishop, but sometimes, you know, when you're playing this type of opening, you put the bishop out there, you're committed to trading it for the knight, because when you do that, you actually gain time. Usually any time one side gains a bishop out of the opening, they do it at a loss of time, and time equals development, and development equals good position. So take that for what it's worth. And now black can't take on c5 because of a little fork. Okay, so black continues his development, but note he could have had this position and still kept his pawn, and the only difference is that this bishop would have been on d2, the knight would have been gone, the bishop would have been gone. Okay, let's see, so b4, and as I said, the white pawns are going to take over the queen side. That's how it happened. But here, black's got sufficient counterplay against the e5 square, and white's going to have to just allow that pawn to be retaken. And there's no hurry to take the pawn. It's not going anywhere. But then again, there may be some kind of urgency, because what else does black do? Black can castle kingside if he wants, and other than that, unless he just wants to ignore and play a pawn down and try to break the position open with f6, he's pretty much committed to taking it. So might as well take it now and preserve the option of queenside castling. Now, is that the right knight? That's a good question. Let's talk about it for a second. How do you tell? Well, you analyze. Moving, if white trades knights, it doesn't matter, because if you take back with a knight, you're right back where you started. You got the same position. The only difference would be my first preference is for that knight. Why? Well, simply because it opens up a square for the bishop. Okay, so let's back up a second. Okay, and show what white did. Now, suppose white just says, I'm not going to let you have the bishop pair. Okay, now what's black going to do? Well, you can't develop this bishop this move, but let's just compare with the other position. Okay, now let's say once again white says you can't have the bishop pair. Now, because the knights are interchanged, this move now becomes an option. Now that doesn't mean you get everything you want. You have to give up something to get that, and I'll show you the difference. Okay, when you take with this knight, and if white doesn't want to give the bishop, now black has this option at his disposal. That move is not available with the other knight, and the bishop will still get developed. The only difference is where your knights are going to be. So, you know, it's almost a coin flip. There's not much difference between the move, but like I say, my preference I stated, and the reason why I stated it was simply because it opens up a square for the bishop to develop. It's going to get developed eventually, but I like to do things quick. But it could also be a thinking deficiency in disguise if you always play that way and just say, well, this is the right knight because I want to develop my bishop. Well, maybe you need that knight on f6 that wouldn't be available in the other line. So let's just go back and continue. And as I said from the outset, if white trades knights, it doesn't matter because we just reached the same position, and white did trade knights. So it actually didn't matter, but sometimes it does matter which way you retake something. Now black has the option to grab the bishop pair, and it might not have been a bad idea here, and I'll tell you why. Let's first look and see what black played. He played queen h4 with a subtle threat. Now he's threatening to take the bishop and then administer checkmate, right? You'll see that tactic, right? I'll come back here. Let's just see what white did. Well, white played g3. Naturally, white's not going to fall for something like that. This is what I call hope chess. You're hoping your opponent falls into your little plan. But you know, this is a situation where why not just go ahead? Now, there's a reason some players might not want to. They'll look at that and say, "Oh, that undoubles his pawns, and then he's going to get d4 in." Well, is he? Okay, now what's wrong with this? Go ahead and kicking that guy. Kick it. Okay, what does that do? It does a lot. It's true. It gives the e4 square for the knight. It gives it b5. There's a queen check down here if he wants it. Probably none of that's any good. But I mean, the queen check is probably not good. The bishop just chases her out. But what this does is here. Let's just show you. Okay. If white wants to return the pawn that that has been handed to him, if he wants to well, actually, no, the pawns are even. So white doesn't. I was thinking white was down a pawn, or up a pawn, but the pawns are even. If white wants to give this check and give up the bishop here to get bishop of opposite colors, I kind of feel sorry for white for settling for so little. Okay. Because what I see as an interesting move is b6. Now, here's what I was trying to say. Knight d6 check, takes, and takes. And now, look at this position. People look at this and say, oh, bishop is opposite colors, it's a draw. Well, that's not true. When you have opposite colored bishops on the board and more artillery, the rule is whoever's the attacker is a piece ahead. Now, who's the attacker here? Well, right now, no one. But black's got a little better prospects here for an attack. Okay, and the fact is, this bishop's going on the long diagonal here, and it's just a second. Okay, that's the main reason, and it's hard to see how this bishop's going to get active. Plus, white paid the price of a pawn for this, so it just can't be any good. Okay, so let's just back up and let's take this guy and go ahead and push, and now we play b6. Okay, now we don't necessarily need to take on c5 because that'll just improve the position of the white knight, but we can kick that knight out of there. Now what's white going to do here? Well, he could try c6. Well, I'm not too worried about that. Okay, we're still going to have some activity here. Okay, at some point black needs to castle. I'll just kind of play what I call fantasy chess. Just play a line that looks reasonable and see what kind of position comes up. It's not the perfect solution. And let's suppose white decides, well, I'm going to get frisky here and I'm going to attack, and then Well, let's see. You can't. Can you do F5 and give up that pawn? You might be able to. Let's see. Now there's a mate threat you got to deal with, but at the end, there's a piece loose. So, oh yeah, no, knight F6 check. You just take with the queen. Okay, so maybe white can't do that, but can't play queen G4. Let's suppose white plays queen H5, just putting on an aggressive square. Okay. As I said, at some point you can kick that knight out, and then let's just try it now. Now I want to put the knight on G3, and the reason is to shield that diagonal. Queen D6 would have threatened mate and pick up the pawn. So, and here, let me just go a little forward here. We've lost the long diagonal here, but we're getting a few other things. We've got this nice little pawn center. And let's just go ahead and play this now and get it over with, because it was coming. And I'll just continue developing, and I'll play this, and here. We might even keep the bishop back for a minute, and then maybe white will shove this rook. Well, at some point, black's got some counterplay against these pawns. He'll open up some lines, and his position on the king side is rock solid, and that B5 pawn may eventually become weak. Black can try and muster something up on it. You know, I don't know how clear this is. It's just an idea, just the fact that white gets this protected pass pawn, but black gets control of the center, has the bishop pair, and at least an even game here. It's so some people don't want to play this type of variation where the other side gets a pass pawn. But anyway, let's move on to where we went. Back to the hope chess line. Okay, because we're hoping we get a mate. Now, what about queen H3? It just seems to follow the spirit of this. Queen H3. The idea is you want to play knight G4 and administer a mate. What does white do? White's got to deal with that, right? How does white deal with that? Well, he can play F4, and then on knight G4, he can then defend. And I don't know, the word defend just doesn't fit right with me. When you're defending, you're passive, and the other side's the aggressor. Now, what else does black have here? There could have been an interposition of a check here, which would destroy the idea of queenside castling. But even if that happened and the light squared bishops came off the board, or not, you know, the king can park himself on F8. At some point, black has H5 and H4, and white's going to have to find a defense here. One way is to chase the queen out, okay, right? Chase the queen out, and then work on chasing the knight out. You know, like if the queen comes back, well, we can just kick it out right now. But I don't know. Just queen H3 seems natural. Make white defend the position, and then maybe some of these ideas of pushing B6 come into mind. Maybe you can open up that diagonal. Let's see. Let me just back up. When he plays F4, and here, and now queen here, now there's this B6 move. Now you're hoping that he takes, but naturally that's hope chess. He's not going to do what you want. He's going to come back with the queen, still kick it out. But it's interesting. It's double-edged. If one side doesn't play it accurately, it can fall apart really quick. And in this case, black is hoping white's the one that doesn't play it accurately. So when you play queen H5, it just seems aggressive, or queen H4 just seems aggressive, and then queen H3 just seems the natural follow-up. But queen F6 is okay. It now threatens a check here for what it's worth, and but the queen no longer has pressure on H2. Okay, so then white stops that, check, and then black continues his development, and wants to keep critters out of B5. What if he... Yeah, because if he castles and knight B5, if you play king B8, white can trade off that bishop, so it makes sense in this case. Black certainly wants to castle long here, but maybe he doesn't need to castle. Maybe this is the time to try to break open the position with, like, yeah, why not? H5. You know, if he maybe back up. Okay. If white takes, hey, you know, look, I've got an open file now. Gee, thanks. See, it's already open, and then the king he can castle queenside to connect the rooks, but he could also even play king f8 and king g7. Try and get the rook file opened up that way, so you can double. Okay, let's get back on the game. I'm just offering alternatives, something for the players to look at on their own. Okay, now bishop e3. Now, a retreating move. Was it necessary? Oh, it's got an attack. That's right. Okay. But again, I'm wondering. It's a good question. Is it really necessary? You're trying to attack the enemy king. Why take pieces away from the king side? What are the alternatives? Well, one of the alternatives is, since it want to attack, is go this way, knight c4. Okay, if you go knight c4, you got to be careful. There's some other possibilities here, but it falls on the hope chess line. You're saying, I want to take this knight, and I want to be on your bishop. So you're hoping something good happens. Bishop d4 kind of spoils the party, maybe, but maybe not. You get ooh, it gets tricky. Can't hang d5. Okay, bishop here threatens to win a piece, and if now black can always take back with his knight. You can, if you play with a queen, you're running into that. There's a double attack, or a discovered attack rather. It's just, like I say, I see a retreating move. I want to look for more, see what else is there, and stimulate you guys to think, well, gee, maybe there is more. What can I didn't see that move. Maybe whether it's good or not, it's not the point. It's getting you guys to take these games and tear them apart and see what happens. And I can't cover everything in the duration of these videos, even though I'm making them longer. Now it gets extremely interesting. White's saying, if you take my knight, I'll take yours, but black gets a pawn out of it. So okay, so now let's take a stock. Black has 7 pawns, white has 6. But white has a plan here, and you'll see it here in just a second. It's bishop d4, and he wants to win this pawn back. But it comes at a price. You know, it opens up that those kingside files for black to attack on, and he's going to do his best to try that in just a minute. Now, here once again, I talk about sometimes when you're collecting pawns, that pawn's not going anywhere. It's true white could defend it with bishop d3 or maybe even queen d4, but did black consider castling here just to save time, worry about the pawn later, make white tie himself down trying to defend it? Okay, like for instance, if you castle, the king's reasonably safe. Now if bishop d3, you know, black's got some interesting possibilities here to open up the board. E5 prepares d4. D4 immediately opens up this diagonal. It gambits a pawn, but maybe it doesn't. You know, now you have e5. Oops, we run into a pin, and so you don't always have to grab pawns just to maintain some kind of a material balance. Okay, let's see, getting the main line. So, but taking the pawn's all right. I'm just saying sometimes you can get more. Just ignore taking pawns. And now after all this, who's better? Well, it's an interesting proposition. Black hasn't castled yet. That's the one drawback. But white's not in any position to take advantage of that. As far as pawn structure goes, white has 3 pawn islands and 2 isolated pawns over on the queen side. Black has only 2 pawn islands. So for all this and all my criticism, it looks like black's got the better game. So somewhere white did something wrong. It's not much of an advantage, but it's a small one. So tiny edge for black, and props to him for doing it. And he's actually not even taking his time here. Just notice the clock, 30. He's not spent that much time on this. Okay, so now we just do a little more maneuvering. Now comes this, but it's coming at a time when pieces can get exchanged. So you've got these two bishops. Use them. Okay. Now, how do you use them? Well, you go back to my method. You open up the center. You have this center pawn mass. Get it rolling, and if you can get the, let me just. I'm going to shuffle the white rook back and forth so I can give black some moves. I'm just going to try to show you the position black would hope to get or like to get. Okay, e5. Okay, I'm going to shuffle this rook back and forth. F5. Now. Breaks like F4 look enticing. D4 looks even more enticing, but F4 looks to be the better one. Even E4 is playable because then you're going to still follow up with one or the other. But yeah, F4 just kind of rolls black on or white on his back. Okay, anyway. But the bishops don't get exchanged, or yeah they do. I'm sorry, thinking of something else. So did black really want to trade those off? Well, he could have kept his bishop on and tried to open up things instead. Now look what's happened. All the smoke was cleared, and neither side has really got any development going at all. Everything they own is on the first and second rank, except for pawns. So nobody's picked up any real estate here. So it's kind of a fresh start as far as trying to generate an attack. And black has managed to fix a pawn on the color of his bishop. That's generally not good. It would have been better on d5, but then black did get rid of his theoretically bad bishop, but with his attacking chances against the king side, it was better to just keep that bishop on the board. So the game is pretty close to even. Black doesn't. I don't think black has quite as much advantage as he did when the bishops were on the board, because he's lost the flexibility of his attacking potential. And this looks good. It's obviously you can't take it. It's a pin. But what's black's follow-up? You certainly can't play rook h8, because then you're running into a pin, and the queen's not threatening to go to h3 or h2 yet. So it's kind of more of a decoration move than anything good. And that's just to defend a pawn. Why defend it that way? If you're going to defend it, what's wrong with this? The point is that it gives you the option to go to rook h8, or at least threaten to go there. Now, white's not without counterplay of his own. Rook b1 hits b7, so we got to watch out for that. But let's just get into the main game. Okay, rook d7. Now chase the queen out. So white didn't even try. White didn't even try the idea of rook b1 here. Well, black has resources. He can drop the bishop back to b8 if anything, and he's got b7 covered. I guess that explains why black played rook d7 and it's not rook g7, because he's going to defend the queen assault. Okay. It just seems an odd square to put the rook behind a pawn. I guess the intent is to push it. Could he have pushed it last move? Can he push it here? If you want to push it, why not push it now? I guess he wants the rook on the open file, but it's not open yet. What if you push it and okay? Let me just get to the game. What if when white pushes c3, black pushes by with d3? That rook looks real silly. That file didn't open up. So I don't understand rook c1 unless something comes up here in a moment. And now black's getting some activity. And white seeks some freeing exchanges. And I don't think exchanging is just the right idea. I've talked about this in a number of other videos. When you're attacking, try not to trade pieces. Keep them on the board. make the other. You need them. You need them to attack. Oops. I want to. Oh, darn it! What move were we on? About 50, or I mean 25 forward. Let's go 56 and see how close that gets us. Yeah, got us pretty close. Okay. What I was trying to do was look for alternatives here other than trading rooks. Okay, what are the alternatives? Well, we have an alternative here. It threatens a check, which of course white will see, but it does have a threat. So white's got to deal with that. He can deal with it with rook h4, or he can deal with it with h4. Okay, both those seem to do. What else can black do? Not much. Okay. It's always worth a look. Okay, f5. Now this seems odd. Just giving up the double pawns. Now, question: who's winning here? I don't think it's a win for black, but I think he's better off. He just kind of went astray here in a few minutes, in a few moves. And okay, the problem with f5 is, okay, let's just stop it here for a second. The problem before I get into the problem of pushing f4. Okay, we now have a situation where none of white's pawns are connected at all, and all of black's are in two separate islands. So to win a game, you need two weaknesses. Well, white has 5 of them. Okay, now he's going to eliminate 1 or 2 of them eventually, but he's not going to eliminate all of them. So if I'm playing black here, I like my chances for a win. How do we win this? Okay, first step, we've got to win a pawn. And the next step is to get everything activated. Now, the thing that's I think is wrong in principle with f4 is simply it does shut this white bishop in, but it also shuts in our own bishop. That's the problem with it. And down the line, then this pawn could become a weakness. Okay, we're black. We're controlling these squares. White can't occupy any of them. Not with a king, not with a bishop. So what we need to do is activate the rook, and that's what f4 is trying to do. It's trying to activate the rook all along the 4th rank. But let's just activate it this way. Okay. Now, what's white going to do? Doesn't matter what he does, he's not going to get rid of his weaknesses. He's going to get into some kind of a defensive mode here in a hurry. Okay, first step, let's activate the rook. Okay, I do talk about activation. Well, fine. Now we finally do something I suggested earlier. We advance our center pawns. Now it's true the pawn's on the color of our bishop, but how's white going to attack it? Okay, he's not. Okay, now what do you want to continue with next? Okay, let's centralize the king. Now the king doesn't really have a lot of scope here. e4 certainly may be very good move. So maybe we don't have time for king f3. Maybe we got to play this. Now let's attack the pawn. Now black has a resource, or white has a resource. He's going to defend it. But now the white bishop is tied down. Okay. And it's not clear how white's going to progress here. What's white's plan? Now we centralize the king. Okay? Now the king's going to come up to the center. He's going to try to get to d5, and that's a wonderful square for the king to be on. And then we're going to start doing other maneuvering and see what happens. And I really like black's chances here to win this ending right here. And it's worth a lot of study to sit down and play with this for Fireball and for MN Runner and anyone else that's interested in this type. Just try to sit down and figure out what would happen from this point. And if I have black here, I'm loving it. I'll just squeeze my opponent to death. I can't sit here and demonstrate the exact winning procedure, but black's got a pretty good position here. Now, I suppose it may be, well, that's not even good enough. You don't have enough for that. Just king f6 on the bishop. You know, he doesn't have time for f4 because the bishop hangs. So anyway, black had good winning chances there. How much time did he spend on f4? Ouch. 22 plus 9, 31. He spent 14 seconds on the move. And anyway, it looks good, but it's trying for too much. You don't. It's very interesting how this game spins out here in the next few moves. It's not easy to see why Black's plan was faulty. It has to do with tactics. Okay. Now once again another pawn's fixed on the black squares, and now what's happened is Black has sacrificed one of his good pawns for one of White's weak pawns, and in doing so, he's now left his own pawns weak. So that's what's gone wrong here. But still, he's fine here. Black still has an even game, and it looks like maybe he has more. But White finds a trick here, and Black walks into it. Okay, here's the trick, and Black falls for it. So pause the video, White to play and do the best he can. Okay, you've resumed the video, and it's tactics. And before we do that, let's see. What was that? 7 to 11, 54 seconds he spent on the move. And like I say, one way to calculate these things out, when you have force variations, there's only one branch of the tree, they're easy to see. Did White look at this check? Or did Black examine this check? Because White did. He played it. Did he examine this check? Excuse me, I have to sneeze. That's two straight videos I made where I had to sneeze. I'm allergic to chess. Oh no. Okay. And then this check. And you can't take the rook because f4 falls and there's a fork and White wins. So Black gives his best effort here to try to hold on. Now he's got a threat of his own. Rook takes f4, and then suddenly Black is smiling again. But White doesn't bite. And he gives a decent effort. If you can trade the 3 pawns for the 2, you can reach a drawing position. It's known as the cockering position. You can look it up, how the rook draws against rook and bishop. And if you don't know it, and one day find yourself defending that position, or on the white side, on the winning side of it, or the aggressive side of it, you'll hate yourself if you don't secure the point or the half point. Okay. So there's really not much more to the game. White does fine. He gets everything off the. Make sure that he keeps one pawn on the board and deprives Black of his desired draw. So there's a lot to this game. It's a pretty interesting one. The level of play, even at these rating levels, is very interesting. There's plenty of opportunity, and any one of you players that's at this rating level, you're just so close to the breakthrough level where all of a sudden you can shoot up 100, 200, 300 points. You just have to refine a few things in your game, and it'll all come forward. Because I see some really good play. Fireball's a pretty good player. He's a good friend, and I hope he's enjoying my video of this. And we can't always win, but we will mess up games that we had advantages in. We all do that. It's just we just try to cut them down, and so that our ratings go up, so we can get paired against higher players, so we can get better. And then that's just suicide. It's just saying, you're going to win in the long run, and White is. And just a few more moves. Do we really need them? Now, next move. Okay, very interesting game. There was plenty to it, plenty of opportunities, and unfortunately for Black, he walked into a tactic, and M-Runner, you did find the way to set it up with Rook G1. That was very clever. And very interesting opening. I don't know where it exited theory, but you guys did fine with it. All right, thanks everyone for their time. I'll be making another video very soon. Take care.